So what happened in the last two chapters? What happened in the last two chapters? Who remembers?
Well, David, instead of going to battle with his men, was loafing it and hung out on the roof and did something he shouldn't have done with one of his men's / friends' wives, Bathsheba. He brought her up, and then he had sex with her, and she got pregnant. And then to try to cover it up, he had Uriah, her husband, killed. And basically Nathan, God wound up like confronting David through a prophet named Nathan, and Nathan told kind of like a parable story about a rich man who had basically everything, had tons of sheep, and then there was a poor man who had one little lamb that he loved and cherished. The rich man took that lamb and killed it for a bunch of guests. And David got really upset and said, well, that rich man needs to be put to death. And Nathan said, well, guess what, David? You're that rich man. And David was cut to the quick. He repented, wrote Psalm 51. Kid died that Bathsheba was pregnant with. And God basically said, this, sexual sin is going to haunt you and is never going to leave your house. It's going to be a huge problem. And basically it's kind of like a curse that's going to follow him. David and Bathsheba had another kid after the child died. That kid was Solomon, who's obviously David's heir to the throne. I think that's where we left off. I think that.
Yeah, right. And then David at the end, he could worship because he thought he knew his baby would have eternal life just like him. And
yes, sir.
we always have to be careful with the age of accountability question, because we don't really know how old the age of accountability is. Some people say it's as late as 20. I seriously doubt that.
I don't think it's a hard age.
Yeah,
just like,
it could be a hard. It could not be a hard age, like, and it could be something like 4 or 5 years old. So you really gotta raise your children up in the Lord early, right? Because what if it's 5? Some people become Christians for the rest of their life when they're 6 years old or 5 years old, and so don't think that I can wait until 12 and then when they turn 13 I'll start talking about Jesus.
No way. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, don't be doing that. Okay.
One of our purposes for existence in the prophets, I forget which one, you got to bring me, I think it's like Malachi or something like that, or Micah maybe, but it says to produce godly offspring. That's like one
right.
of
that's what the circumcision
hang on one sec.
Yep. And so God cursed David in the last chapter. God told David, because of his sins, the sword would never depart from his house. God would raise up evil against David out of his own house, just like David did evil to Uriah and Bathsheba. Just like David took Bathsheba, David would also have his wives taken before him and given to his neighbors. And David tried to so hard to keep all of this a secret. God will reveal his sins to the whole world, right? So God is just reversing everything. This is God's judgment is just reversing everything, All right, so let's go through the first page. Joanna, could you read the first page, please?
Now Absalom, David's son, had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar. And after a time, Amnon, David's son, loved her. And Amnon was so tormented that he made himself ill because of his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and it seemed impossible to Amnon to do anything to her.
Okay, so Amnon loved Tamar. They were brothers and sisters, right? Their father was both David, right?
Yes.
Can brothers and sisters be together?
No.
No, that's right. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 22. Cursed be anyone who lies with his sister, whether the daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother. This is something that you're not supposed to do in Israel. You're not supposed to be with your family members, right? Now, this is something that's common with kings, right? Because kings, they don't always know who they can trust. They've always got many, many enemies. So just like Caligula, the famous Roman emperor, married his sisters, this is something that emperors do, is they want to marry in the family, because the most important thing with kings is, who can I trust? You know, who can I trust? Okay. As far as brother and sister, we know that Adam and Eve's offspring, well, they didn't have much of a choice, did they?
How about Abraham and Sarah?
They had lots of choice. Why?
Well, because they were also like half brothers or half sisters. Abraham married Sarah, and Sarah is his half sister.
Yeah, and Isaac's wife, to Isaac and his wife. What is his wife?
Rebecca?
Oh yeah, Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah, they're like cousins or something.
Well, and this is before this is before Deuteronomy, and so
Okay.
Okay.
you know, now we know that it's a good process genetically that's happened, because if you and your sister, or you and your brother, have a genetic defect, like you know, I don't know, like a long nose or something like that, and you hopefully I didn't say something racist, but if when you have two people who get married, whatever that defect, the chances of inheriting that genetic defect is even higher, right? So it goes from 25% to 50%, right?
Yeah.
So you know, most people who do genetics, they know that you don't want to have family relations because of that. Also, though, with God, it's also important that family members, there's a different relationship. You know, there's jealousy, and then there's a different kind of relationship that you have with your wife, that you have with your parents, that you have with your children, that you have with your brothers and sisters, your family members, and your friends. There's different kind of relationships, and you don't want to kind of blur them. Anyway, why was Tamar's virginity a problem for Amnon? Why was Tamar's virginity a problem for Amnon?
Isn't virginity something to be cherished? And so like he either marries her or he shouldn't be messing with that, because if she loses her virginity, she
Right.
would be like really, she would be like pretty much undesirable for
Yeah, that's true.
marriage.
But like, while if she was not a virgin, then they could fornicate, right? They could have. I mean, I mean, it would be sinful to obviously to fornication is obviously a sin, but she's a virgin, so you know, it makes fornication for him very difficult, because it makes that much bigger of a sin. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, so next, and what Judy said was correct. virginity, a woman's virginity at that time was very important. This is, of course, this is before Sigmund Freud, and that he taught that sexual repression was the source of most of society's problems, which helped launch the world into the sexual revolution of the 1960s and the homosexual revolution and all this stuff that we're dealing with now. This is before all that.
There's something too in like the Old Testament Mosaic law, and if there was, you know, a marriage or something, and the woman was found to not be like a virgin, like didn't have proof of virginity, then
Yeah,
she would be stoned.
that's right.
So the fornication thing without not being a virgin, like that's still a huge problem
It's a huge sin.
in
Yeah.
Israel. Like if you're found to not be a virgin and you're not married to somebody, like you're getting killed.
Now,
right?
I will say my country is. Sorry, Dan. Sorry, were you still going?
No, just
yeah.
also if a man is found to have been with a woman, like rapes a woman and sends her away in Deuteronomy 22, I believe it said, I'll have to read it, but I'm like the guy, it's counted as a murder and he's to be killed.
Yeah.
So rape is like you get killed for it in the Old Testament
That's
law.
It's serious, right?
It's a huge deal. Yeah, it's a massive, like they don't play around with that stuff.
Now, in my country, unfortunately, sex is really not a very I don't know what you say. People are not chaste anymore. In fact, we had a movie called 40-Year-Old Virgin. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where everyone was mocking a 40-year-old virgin, and it just shows you how sort of perverse our culture is. I don't think we're as bad as Rome was during the time of the New Testament, but we're pretty bad in America. Like it's like I went to college and I went in and I was in high school and the people were just like very immoral. Anyway,
I was just wondering what the love in actually it is in its original language meant, because it didn't really mean love. When he loved, it's like lust. It's more like lust, I think.
yeah, I mean I agree with you. I agree with you. Dan and Joanna are hitting at things that I was going to talk about later. We're going to go through Deuteronomy chapter 22.
Oh, okay.
But that it's fine. No. We can do about it. We can do it now. You guys are, yeah. You guys are on top of things.
Knowledgeable.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. Oh shoot. Which? Yeah, that's right.
Let me search Blue Letter Bible.
I mean, it's obviously not love like a responsible love.
No.
Human love for another includes family or a sexual love. Human appetite for objects such as food.
Oh, it's kind of general.
I'm thinking number 2.
Human appetite.
God's love toward man. Lovely friend, lovers. Maybe like this. Like lover like an adulterer. That's probably like a lustful love.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many times this form of love is used in the Old Testament. Almost 200 times. 211 times. Wow. It's first used in Genesis chapter 22 about Abraham and Isaac, the child that you love. So it's obvious. It's kind of like the word love in English, which it kind of, I guess it kind of means a lot of things. Love in English is such a flexible word. You have to put it in context.
If it appears the first time in the love from Abraham to Isaac, I think it's a very possessive kind of love, like you're mine, you know, you
Yeah, maybe.
belong to me, not
Yeah, it's possible.
God, you know, in a relationship, not
All right.
Yeah, so this word is ahab. Ahab in Hebrew. It really is a general word for love. So it could really mean any kind of
Anything.
love.
Yeah.
It's just like English word love.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Sophia, could you read this page, please?
sure. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother, and Jonadab was a very crafty man. And he said to him, O son of the king, why are you so haggard morning after morning? Will you not tell me? Amnon said to him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister.
All right. So, Amnon is really loving his sister. We don't know a lot about uh, Jonadab. Oh, wait, how do you say Jonadab? Jonadab. Anyway, we don't know a lot about Jonadab. He's only mentioned in about 2 chapters, this chapter and the next chapter, and he doesn't really have a lot of. He's not mentioned very much outside of these 2 chapters. And it says about him he was very crafty. So that doesn't sound like a compliment to me. Anyway, how about Judy? Do you mind reading verse 5?
Okay, Jonadab said to him, lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill, and when your father comes to see you, say to him, let my sister Tamar come and give me bread to eat, and prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat it from her hand.
Okay, so do you think this is good advice?
No,
No.
this is very
No.
reminiscent of the garden.
It's
You
very
got a
reminiscent of
crafty-
what?
The garden. You have someone very crafty, the serpent, right? Yeah, and this guy who just has a purely physical lust appetite. You know, he wants to just satisfy his appetite, and that's it. And he's just listening to the craftiness, and it just sounds like real bad
Yeah,
situation.
but he doesn't really say you should rape her, right? He doesn't seem to say
He doesn't say you should
rape
rape
her.
her, but it's kind of inferred.
Well, it could be that he was promoting fornication, or just but I don't think he's actually saying you should rape her, take her against her will. It could
That's true.
be just like have a mutual thing, like have a mutual relationship. We don't really know. He's not saying that, but still, it's very bad advice, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Because he lied.
Amnon, like everyone has already been saying, this is just lust, right?
Yeah,
This is
it's love.
she's beautiful. I want to lie with her. That's just lust.
Yeah.
Why do you like her? She's beautiful. Do you know anything about her? This is lust. Love is like, you've got to be willing to give more than you receive, right? That's a
Yeah,
godly love.
if there's not
This
if
is
there's not a commitment behind it, like I don't think there's anything wrong with like seeing a beautiful woman and being like, yo, like I'm interested, like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think if you're not willing to like lay down a full-fledged commitment for the rest of your life, that's a problem. And that's obviously we see this unfold is he's not willing to do that,
right,
which goes completely against Old Testament law, by the way.
and
Also, she's
and
his sister.
and they're sisters, and they're not going to really try for a normal relationship. If this is, I mean, if this, we don't really know what Jonadab is really suggesting. Maybe he's just saying this is a way that you guys can spend time together, but this is terrible advice. They're just all he's telling him to do is to manipulate her so that they're together, and that's all that we're doing. And so Jonadab is really not a helpful figure. And yes, all Amnon has is this is just lust. This is not love. This is not true love. This is just lust. This is just she's beautiful. I want to lay with her, and that's it. Right. And if you don't know that now, you'll know that soon. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Dan, do you mind reading verse 6?
Sure thing. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. And when the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, "Please let my sister Tamar come and make a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat from her hand."
Okay, so same thing. James Chappell, could you read this page?
Yeah, sure. Then David sent home to Tamar, saying, "Go to your brother Amnon's house and prepare food for him." So Tamar sent to her brother Amnon's house where he was lying down. And she took dough and kneaded it and made cakes in his sight and baked the cakes.
All right, so this is basically just basic information. How about James? James. Oh my gosh. Salesman James. Can you read this page?
He is muted.
No one is a salesman, Thomas.
Wait, James, I thought you were a bit salesman, right?
James, engineer.
Engineer James?
Who's the one
I
that's
can
not
read.
engineer James?
I can read, Thomas.
Okay, Samuel, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And she took the pan and emptied it out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, "Send out everyone from me." So everyone went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food into the chamber, that I may eat from your hand." And Tamar took the cakes she had made and brought them into the chamber to Amnon, her brother.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Bank James. Is that better?
Banker?
Banker James.
Yes.
Banker James. I still need to borrow some money.
Can you like stop like labeling people?
No, because your names are all the
No,
same.
we have 3 Jameses.
It's hard to
Samuel.
distinguish.
Like label
We have
I
three,
add my
we have
surname on.
three Jameses.
But we have got a different surname. I add my surname on.
Okay, James Chong. Okay, thanks, James.
Okay, I read the page.
Yes, please.
Okay, but when she brought them near him to eat, she took hold of her and said to her, "Come and lie with me, my sister." She answered him, "No, my brother, do not bother me for such a thing. It's not done in Israel. Do not do this outrageous thing."
I can't believe he said, "Come lie with me, my sister." At least
Yeah.
just say, "Come
in
lie
one
with me."
sentence.
He said, "Come lie with me, my sister." You know, that's anyway. He's very aggressive. Okay, so violate. The word "violate" here, you could also translate it humiliate.
Yeah.
It was a very serious thing at this time
Yeah.
amongst the Israelites to be a virgin and to lose your virginity. As Dan was saying in Deuteronomy chapter 22, and we're just going to go through this so you can have an idea of virginity. If a husband rejects his wife and she is a virgin, but the husband rejects the wife and tells everyone, "Oh, I married her, but then she's not a virgin," and he's lying. The husband was to be whipped and fined just because he brought a bad name on the virgin. However, if it's found out that the woman is not a virgin, she would be stoned to death. This is how serious it is. If an engaged virgin lies with another man, they were both to be stoned. Unless, how would she not be stoned? How would she not be stoned? If a virgin is engaged and she lies with another man, they would both be stoned unless she cried for help. And as Dan said, if you rape a virgin who is engaged, Dan, you said this earlier. If you rape a virgin who is engaged, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 26, literally compares it to committing a murder. It says, for this case is like that of a man attacking and murdering his neighbor. So that's very strong language. So if a virgin is engaged and you rape this person and you destroy the marriage, you destroy the family, you've basically just committed a murder. If the virgin is not engaged and a man rapes her, then the man must marry her and must give the father money. He can never divorce her. So at this time, a woman's virginity is very serious. And I really wished in verse 11, chapter 11, I really wish it showed Bathsheba putting up more of a fight against David. We don't really know if Bathsheba was resisting or not, but I wish I had seen more resisting against David with Bathsheba in chapter 11.
I feel like, sorry, Thomas. I feel like in that culture, like women didn't have a voice. Like women didn't like Bathsheba, she was facing a king. She couldn't say no. Like, I'm like reading Tamar's response to this jerk brother. I'm like, because I would say, oh, you are such an idiot. I don't even like you. Go away. But she's not expressing herself. Like she is like saying, the law says no, don't violate the law, don't do this. It's like disgraceful, blah blah blah. But it's like I can't. I'm not. I don't have a. I'm not communicating my not wanting to be with you because I don't like you at all.
All right.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think, Sophia, I think like the point about the king, I think you're spot on with it. I do think that more women in Israel particularly had a voice than any other culture at that time and actually in history. But I think the thing you said with the king, I think is spot on. And I think Tamar, she did like him a little bit. I mean, it doesn't say that. You know what I mean? Like you don't know. Like it doesn't. Like she said, hey, ask David if you can marry me. He's not going to refuse it. Like she might have liked him a little bit. You don't know. It doesn't say she hated him and was annoyed at him and said, no, get away from me. Like
she was beautiful, and he was probably going to be the next king. He was first to the throne.
Yes.
See, then that means that he has power. Like he has that kind of like power, that authority. Like women just like at that time.
Women love power too.
Status.
All right. Let's.
Women love the status too.
Oh my
Real.
We do. It doesn't matter in the history.
So we see the consequence, God's consequence, giving to David, like after what David did, took someone else's wife, and now his own daughter was raped.
Yeah. You're punished by God.
So, Sophie, wouldn't it be just easier if we just blame the women and move on?
Okay, all right. It's my fault.
I'm just kidding. Please don't punish me.
Sophia, because there's no Me Too movement back then. The hashtag Me Too movement.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh, David's going to be canceled for sure. Dave, don't worry.
Yeah.
And Amnon is going to be canceled very harshly. Don't worry about that. Anyway, verse 13. So, okay, how about Engineer James? Your name sounds very.
Right, we need engineer.
Engineer James.
Okay. As for me, where could I carry my shame? And as for you, you would be as one of the outrageous force in Israel. Now therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. But he would not listen to her, and being stronger than she, he violated her and led with her.
Yeah. So she, if he rapes her, not only is it going to be rape, she's going to lose her virginity. It would be shameful because she's no longer a virgin, and then she's not married. He would be an outrageous fool because he raped a virgin. And so she suggests, okay, speak to David and we'll just get married, even though we're brother and sister. That's fine. he doesn't want to wait, and he overpowers her with his strengths and rapes her. Right? And so why doesn't Amnon wait to get married? Why not?
I don't think he wants to be responsible and be committed. He just he's quite impulsive.
Well, I think this is just idolatry, right?
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
sinners always try to find something in God's creation to worship other than God, right? Other than the Father. So maybe instead of a woman, maybe it's a new phone, or going on a vacation, or a new computer. You know, what are things that we idolize in life? You know, respect, attention, money. What are things we
I
can't
really
wait for
don't
in life?
think, and I really don't think he respected her at all. Like,
Well,
he
yeah,
just
this is
wants
not.
what
This
he
is
wants
not.
now.
This is not a healthy love. This is just pure lust. Just pure lust. Right. And then, ladies, you do need to know, ladies. Most of you are a little bit older. You're not kids. You're not young women anymore. But I will say this: just because a guy is pursuing you does not mean he loves you appropriately. So, you know, a girl might think, "Wow, Amnon, he really likes me. Maybe we should get married." But this is just lust. This is not the kind of love that you want at all, ladies.
Yeah, just
all.
because I mean, I've heard of women who said like, oh, if I would lay with my boyfriend, he will not leave me. But the opposite is true. If you give yourself to your boyfriend before marriage, why should he marry you after he got all he wanted?
And we shouldn't struggle with this at all in the church. But like, if you marry someone, you do need to make sure, whether you're a guy or a girl, if someone is really drawn to you, are they drawn to you for the right reasons? You know, or is it just lust?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So if someone respects you and really loves you, he would marry you and be responsible.
And then we need to make sure that the woman's not trying to be with you just because of your power and your money.
Watch out.
I don't think I got to worry about that.
Physical power, Dan. Physical power. Anyway, so wouldn't even wait to get married. That's not a good sign of love. Okay, we have Patricia. Oh, Patricia, can you read this, please?
Okay. Then Amnon hate her with very great heart hatred, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, "Get up, go." But she said to him, "No, my brother, for this wrong in sending me away is greater than the other that you did to me." But he will not listen to her. He called the young man who served him and said, "Put this woman out of my presence," and brought the door after her. Wow.
Okay. Thank you, Patricia. Okay, so so this was not love, right? This is not love like we would think of. This was just lust. As soon as he did what he wanted to do, then he's like, leave, right? Why do you think Amnon hated Tamar? Why do you think Amnon hated Tamar at this point?
I think like he knows that he has sinned and he's ashamed of it.
Yes, that's true. Probably, yeah.
That, and also she would have been probably demanding a commitment from him at that point. That's what the law said, and that's what right looked like, you know. And it's, I think in the time, it's just kind of the natural flow of things. Otherwise, you'd be stoned to death for it, and obviously that doesn't happen. So
yeah,
but
and we know for sure, like, you know, this I have a feeling that a lot of ladies, and maybe men, but mostly ladies, probably would benefit from reading this chapter. where you've got a guy pursuing you and giving you attention and out of control attention, and then as soon as there's a sexual relationship, and immediately there's hatred, and then leave, and then they've lost all interest, right?
Yeah.
No interest at all anymore.
Right.
And so this is clearly this is clearly what we would call lust. He just wants her. There's nothing. This is just like all the guys trying to hit up girls at a bar on Friday night, and it's just a game for them. This is just This is not. This is just. There's nothing that we would consider love here.
Yeah, because if someone really loves you, they will marry you. First.
And if you once we idolize phones, we idolize computers and music and all these things. A lot of times when we get what we think we want, we get our God replacement, immediately we know it's not what we wanted, right?
Yeah.
And so this is just idolatry.
It doesn't satisfy, right?
Right. So then we either turn back to God or we turn to another idol. The people outside of the church, they just run to other idols all the time. Okay. He probably also sees his sins, all the problems that he now has with his rape. Another thing I think is now that she's no longer a virgin, maybe he's not attracted to her anymore.
Maybe.
Because now she's like a humiliated woman. She's now a ruined woman, right? And so she was very desirable when she was a virgin, and now she's not a virgin anymore. And now, most women in this culture are virgins who you would want to marry. She's not a virgin anymore, and now it's like, ugh, you're not even a virgin. You're a disgraceful woman, and it's less desirable. So now the fact that he did it is irrelevant to him, right? And of course, this is not love. This is definitely lust, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm blaming the victim, but I feel like Tamar didn't really protect herself. Like she wasn't being alert enough. Like when she went with her food, and then Amnon sent everyone out and asked her to come into his chamber. I'm like, red flag, run. Like you don't.
He's playing sick too.
Yeah,
like he was at
yeah.
so sick and weak he couldn't do anything.
Going into the sending everyone out, just being alone. I'm like, without anyone. Big red flag. Come on, just run. You don't stay there.
But you might not expect this from your brother or your sister. And a lot of this has to do with David's judgment. David's being judged now, and so God pretty much says, "Okay, devil, David sinned in this horrible way. I judged him. You can have your way with David's family at this point." And so the demons are, kind of manipulating his mind to build up idols in his mind, that are crazy. Anyway. Why did Tamar say sending her away was worse than the rape?
I think in the beginning, maybe Amnon had this great attraction for her because it was like a love that is not allowed, and so it's even more attractive. Now that he had gotten what he wanted, now it's time for him to be doing the right thing, which is to marry her. He doesn't want to do it. He probably just wants the excitement, and that's it. Right?
Yeah, she's not desirable to him anymore.
Yeah.
And really maybe all it is she's not a virgin anymore. That might be the biggest thing, because
right.
I mean he's the most powerful son in all of Israel. He can have any woman he wants, probably. He's not gonna pursue someone who's not a virgin.
And she probably would always remind him of what he did to her.
Right.
Her
This is just
reminds her
that's just a
of her
lifetime of
presence.
misery. He's crossed a major boundary, and now he's going to
Thomas,
expect a lifetime of misery. Yes,
Thomas, King David thinks he's a womanizer. He's a player.
King David. Well, he has lots of wives. He did commit adultery on all of his wives with Bathsheba.
Mm.
Yeah, he did.
Like a father, like a son.
Yeah, I think the son was worse. So this is a good example of like, whatever the leader does at the home. If your dad does something naughty, the children might take that even more, right?
Yeah.
So the David
take it to the next level.
cheats on his wives, and then the son rapes a woman. Very clearly rapes a woman,
His
takes away
own
their virginity.
sister.
His own
Yeah,
sister.
David
right?
committed murder too, though. I don't know, I wouldn't say hard pressed to say that Amnon was worse. David killed a guy. So
Yeah.
That's true.
But a murder will take place soon. Is another son.
Oh yeah, and we're
I would call that
We're
justice,
gonna
though.
get to that soon.
But I'm not killed
Absalom.
by his brother.
What?
I
Sorry.
mean, David killed other person, but I'm not killed by his brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
So
get to
they
that,
are
we'll get to
killing
that.
within the family. It's more worse than David.
Yeah.
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 Point there.
So it's a curse by God.
The guy should have been put to death.
wrongdoing.
David did not have his son put to death as he should have, or forced
Yeah,
him to marry.
David was not put to death for one, and then how do you put your children to death? If you put your children to death, then it's going to be like, well, why don't you put yourself to death, right?
Well, I think. Well, he married. He did marry. Yeah, he should have. He should have, by the law, David should have been put to death probably. But I think also he should have put either made Amnon marry his sister, or he should have had him put to death according to the law. And he didn't do that. And we see Joab uses something crafty to like make it seem like, oh, it's the right thing to do to save your son, and it's just like this big spiral of nonsense. And
Well, yeah, this is exactly. This is how sin spirals out of control. And I don't know, like if I'm Tamar and then Amnon did all this stuff to me, I don't know if I want to marry him. But yeah, you could tell that when she's being raped, she's thinking, well, what's next is I'm gonna get married, and this is a horrible, this is a horrible situation. But what's next is Amnon and I are going to get married. And the most shocking part of this is he says he hates her now, because this is all built on lust. He hates her now, and he says go, and he doesn't want anything to do with her anymore. And so that's and now she's going to have to live as not a virgin, useless woman, because no one's going to want to marry her in Israelite society. Right. And it could be that she might not have cried out, because remember Deuteronomy 22, if you're being raped, you call out, someone's raping me. And maybe she didn't cry out because she didn't want, for someone to stop the rape, because this was her brother, and this is just an awful situation. Anyway, the ultimate betrayal, just absolutely betrayed your own sister. I mean, this is unbelievable. What you would do.
Murdering. It's like murdering her.
Well, Deuteronomy chapter 23. I'm not defending Amnon at all, but Deuteronomy chapter 20 says, 22 says that it's like murder when you rape a virgin who is engaged. But this is still a horrible thing.
Horrible.
It is
Yeah.
similar to rape, to murder. Yeah, that's true. Okay, Ivy. Is Ivy still here?
Yes.
Ivy, could you read this page, please?
Okay. Now she was wearing a long robe with the sleeves, for thus were the virgin daughters of the king dressed. So his servant put her out and bolt the door after her. Then Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the long wall she wore. And she laid her hand on her head and went away, crying aloud as she went.
Okay, so a robe with sleeves could also be translated robe with many colors. So it's the same. It's the same words used with Joseph's robe in Genesis. Obviously, she sadly tore her robes because these robes were worn by the virgins, and she's no longer a virgin, right? And so she tears her robes very very sadly, and this is probably the worst day of her life. The day that she was raped and lost her virginity, and she was very beautiful too, right? So I think if you're a woman and you're very beautiful, you kind of expect, oh, who am I going to marry? Am I going to marry someone wealthy or powerful? And now you realize, well, I'm not going to marry anyone, you know? And so it's really sad, right? All right. Who is Thomas?
Me.
Okay. Okay, let's start over. Joanna, I think everyone's read.
Okay.
Joanna, could you read?
And her brother Absalom said to her, "Has Amnon your brother been with you? Now hold your peace, my sister. He's your brother. Do not take this to heart." So Tamar lived a desolate woman in her brother Absalom's house. When King David heard of all these things, he was very angry, but Absalom spoke to Amnon neither good nor bad. For Absalom hated Amnon because he had violated his sister Tamar.
All right, so Absalom, which we're going to hear a lot for the rest of 2 Samuel, Tamar's brother tells Tamar not to get revenge because it's her brother. Sadly, the beautiful Tamar has to live a desolate woman. No one will marry her now, so she has to live in Absalom, her brother's house, right? And David might be angry, but Absalom's heart is full of quiet hatred, right? David's angry. Absalom absolutely hates Amnon, and he's plotting his revenge.
Yeah.
It's so weird because David was angry, but he didn't do anything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
As a father, he should have protected his children.
Well, so would you have wanted them to get married?
I would.
What do you think, Sophia?
I don't know. Like,
He should marry her.
yeah,
I think he should.
He should, but I don't know if she wants to, like, it's hard. I don't know. Yeah, bring me some time and I'll marry you. Okay.
I mean, that is going to be the worst marriage of all time. I think that is going to be the worst. That is going to be the worst train wreck marriage ever. Anyway.
Or maybe because he is a crown prince.
He's a what?
The crown prince.
Crown
you know,
prince.
because
Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
I mean, the plan for him will be different.
Yeah, right. You're right. Because so maybe David's preparing him because he's supposed to be the king one day.
Oh,
He was David's first child, so he's going to be king one day. And so it's
it's
like,
like,
oh, whenever you're the new king is gets into trouble, well, let's find a way to kind of get him out of it.
I would have said, if you did something like that, then like it's not good for you to be the king, probably. If like you're not even the king yet, and
That's a good point.
Good point.
You're no longer going to be king. Sorry, you raped.
Then again, though, he probably Amnon could have been like, "Wait, Dad, what about you?" And
oh yeah.
Well,
I didn't rape Bathsheba. Well, I don't know. That's debatable, but yeah, I think Dan. I think that's a great. I think that's a great point. I know at that time the first son was culturally supposed to take over everything. I know that, But I know he makes a great point. I mean, you could just say, sorry, Amnon, you're not going to be king. You can't rape people and be king. You can't rape your.
And this is, I feel like something too. David was like the youngest of, a bunch of brothers. So like the whole oldest thing should have fallen right by him. Like,
Right. You make an
Right.
excellent point. And Solomon is not. You would not think Solomon would be
No.
the king, and he ends up being the king, right? So it's the same,
Yeah.
it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. Sophia, could you read this page, please?
Sure. After 2 full years, Absalom had sheep shearers at Baal Hazor, which is near Ephraim. And Absalom invited all the king's sons. And Absalom came to the king and said, "Behold, your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and his servants go with your servant."
Okay. So Ephraim is right here. Okay. Let's move on. Judy, do you mind reading this page?
Okay, but the king said to Absalom, "No, my son, let us not all go, lest we be burdensome to you." He pressed him, but he would not go, but gave him his blessing. Then Absalom said, "If not, please let my brother Amnon go with us." And the king said to him, "Why should he go with you?" But Absalom pressed him until he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him.
All right. So how does Absalom manipulate David?
He
How does
pressed.
Absalom? What?
He pressed him.
Well, yeah, this is well, one thing, David is sort of a little bit lazy, right?
He is very lazy.
He's kind of
Look,
it's hard for me to think of David as lazy, but he's a little bit lazy, right?
The reason
Discipline.
And not fair to all
he
his
slept
kids.
until like afternoon, right? That's why he saw Bathsheba bathing, because he didn't wake up in the morning. He slept until noon or something
Yeah.
like that. So, and it's like the country was at war at that time, and then he was like sleeping. I mean, what
Right.
kind of thing is that?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think here Absalom knows that David's a little bit lazy. So he can say, "Hey, let's all go, you too." And David's gonna be like, "No, I don't want to go. I've always got my couch, I can't say much because my couch is very comfortable. I can't really blame him too much. So David basically says, "Why do I have to go too?" And so it seems like Absalom's using David's weakness against him, right? And so, and then all the sons go with him, right? All the sons go with him. Okay, how about James Chung? Could you read this?
Okay. Then Absalom commanded his servants, mark when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I said to you, strike Amnon, then kill him. Do not fear. Have I not commanded to you? Be courageous and be violent. So the servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and each mounted his mule and fled.
All right, so what happened?
Murder.
Another murder. Wow.
Murder.
We're all used to that right now.
Revenge.
First and second
killed,
Samuel, we're all
Amnon.
used to murder.
This is a revenge.
Oh yeah, this is definitely revenge.
Revenge.
Definitely revenge for Tamar. So they got Amnon away from his normal protection, royal protection, got him drunk. So he's not as strong. He can't run away, can't defend himself. Then Absalom had Amnon murdered. And so we now know Amnon, who was going to be the king, probably, now he's definitely not going to be the king. Anyway, all of David's sons are here. Why do you think Absalom wanted all of David's sons here?
I mean, if he were to only invite Amnon, he might not go, but to invite everyone else to look like he's just inviting everyone, so maybe he would be feel okay going.
In verse 27, it says, but Absalom pressed him until he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. So Absalom, I don't want to make any Asian jokes here, but Absalom did a wonderful job covering up his hatred for Amnon for years until he set the trap. He has pure hatred for Amnon.
Thomas,
Yes.
2
don't be
years.
a racist.
Oh my gosh, I'm joking,
funny.
Samuel.
Oh
It's
yeah,
very
I'm
Sun
offended.
Tzu.
I'm offended now.
It's the Sun Tzu approach, which is purely that is a Chinese thing. It's a warfare thing. I don't know if this is Absalom, but it's similar. I got to say, Thomas, I think it's similar. It's a
Alright.
very Sun Tzu approach to dealing with a problem.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sun Tzu said deceit is the nature of all warfare or something like that. Anyway, and so anyway, I tend to think that Absalom had all the sons go there because he's already sort of planning a rebellion, because Absalom is not next in line for the throne. Even if Absalom kills Amnon, he's still not next in line. So I think that, yes, Absalom hates Amnon, but this is sort of like his strategy of taking the throne for himself.
Yeah, it's almost like, to me, like I'm like, oh, I like Absalom wanted witnesses. Like
Right.
You know,
Tell
Like
all the
intimidating
sons,
the
this is
other
what happens when you
siblings.
cross me.
yeah, I wanted you to all see what I'm doing here right now, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
I'm gonna take over.
Yeah, I'm taking
Intimidation.
over,
Yeah.
right. I think something like that's going on.
Right. And also like he probably have grudges against David for doing nothing as well.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point, Judy. Like get the sons down, and then it's Absalom and over the sons against David, right? So this is probably what creates the major strife between David and Absalom. It's like, why didn't you do more against Amnon when he raped my sister? You know.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's a good point, Judy. All right, so next is Dan. Could you read this page?
Sure can. While they were on the way, news came to David. Absalom has struck down all the king's sons, and not one of them is left. Then the king arose and tore his garments and lay on the earth, and all his servants who were standing by tore their garments.
Yeah, so gossip tends to never be right, and so this is all the king's sons are dead. It's very serious. The first news that reaches David is very wrong. He thinks all of his sons are killed except for Absalom, right? All right, let's keep going. How about Samuel? Could you read this page?
First thing. Okay, but my pronunciation might not be good. Okay.
Fine.
But Jonadab, the son of Shimea, David's brother, said, that not my lord suppose that they have killed all the young men, the king's sons, for Amnon alone is dead. For by the command of Absalom, this has been determined from the day he violated his sister Tamar. Now therefore that not my lord the king, so take it to heart as to suppose that all the king's sons are dead, for Amnon alone is dead.
So Jonadab is the one that gave Amnon the terrible advice, right?
Yeah.
And now somehow he already knows about Amnon being the only one dead. So he is a very crafty guy. He probably knew in advance what's really going on, right? Anyway, let's keep going. How about Engineer James?
Okay. But Absalom fled, and the young man who kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, many people were coming from the road behind him by the side of the mountain. And Jonadab said to the king, Behold, the king's sons have come, as your servant said, so it has come about.
We lost James Chapel, didn't we? Anyway.
I'm here.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you're here?
Yeah, it's just my screen's off. That's all.
Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that. All right. So we're gonna keep going. James Chapel, could you read this verse, please?
Sure. And as soon as he had finished speaking, behold, the king's sons came and lifted up their voice and wept. And the king also and all his servants wept very bitterly.
So, okay. Only Amnon is dead, and whatever Absalom plan had getting all the sons out there, it doesn't look like it worked very well with, because all the sons are all weeping over Amnon's death, right? Okay, let's keep going. Next is Ivy. Could you read this page, please?
Okay. So Absalom fled and went to Talmai, son of Ammi, king of Geshur, and David mourned for his son day after day. So Absalom fled and went to Geshur, and was there 3 years. And the spirit of the king longed to go out to Absalom, but he was comforted with about Amnon, since he was dead.
Okay, this is Geshur. This is Geshur. This is where Absalom went. Okay. How did David feel about Absalom after he fled? How did
He missed
feel?
him.
Yeah.
Right. Look, it says the spirit of the king longed to go out to Absalom. It's such a wonderful picture of Jesus, of God, man after God's own heart. Even though he killed his own son, the spirit longs to go out to Absalom. He longs to have this mercy and this reconciliation, right? And what a wonderful verse about the heart of the Father. Of course, this is after he gets over Amnon. Anyway, next is Patricia. Could you read this page, please?
Okay, but there are too many words. I don't know how to pronounce.
Just do your best. Don't worry. No one's gonna know that you mispronounced it.
Okay, now Job, the son of Zeruiah, knew that the king's heart went out to Absalom, and Joab sent to Tekoa and brought from there a wise woman and said to her, pretended to be a mourner and put a mourning garment. Do not anoint yourself with oil, but behave like a woman who has been mourning many days for the death. Go to the king and speak thus to him. So Job put the words in her mouth.
So Joab setting up a little trick, right?
Yes.
Little trick with David. Okay. This is Tekoa. This is Tekoa. It kind of sounds like an Indian name to me, the Tekoa. I don't know. Okay, Joanna, could you read this page, please?
When the woman of Tekoa came to the king, she fell on her face to the ground and paid homage and said, "Save me, O king." And the king said to her, "What is your trouble?" She answered, "Alas, I am a widow. My husband is dead, and your servant had 2 sons, and they quarreled with one another in the field. There was no one to separate them, and one struck the other and killed him."
All right, this is kind of sad, right? It's very similar. What do you think Joab's trying to do? Does anybody know what Joab's trying to do?
To provoke David to action or something?
Yeah, he's gonna getting David to do something. Let's get more details. How about Sophia? Could you read this page?
And now the whole clan has risen against your servant, and they say, "Give up the man who struck his brother." that we may put him to death for the life of his brother, whom he killed. And so they would destroy the heir also. Thus they would quench my coal that is left and leave to my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth.
Okay, so why would killing the child be, killing the son be terrible for the woman? Why?
It's her heir, right?
Right. So the husband's already dead, right?
Yeah.
And then she's got two
She's a
sons.
widow.
One son murdered the other son, and then
Mm-hmm.
the murdering son put to death, and then her whole family's wiped out.
Mhm.
Right. So this would be terrible for her.
Yeah, she needs her social security. That's her
Right.
only son.
The only thing men are good for is that social security.
In that culture at that time.
All right, I'm joking. Okay, how about Judy? Could you read this?
And the king said to the woman, "Go to your house, and I will give orders concerning you." And the woman of Tekoa said to the king, "On me be the guilt, my lord the king, and on my father's house. Let the king and his throne be guiltless."
Okay, and James Chung, could you read this page?
The king said, if anyone says anything to you, bring him to me, and she shall never touch you again. Then she said, please let the king invoke the Lord, your God, that the arranger of the blood kill no more, and that my son be not destroyed. He said, as the Lord lives, no one hair of your son shall fall to the ground.
Okay, so what does David promise the woman?
Protect her son.
Yep, it'll protect the son, and who else will be protected?
The murderer?
The son is the murderer.
Oh, okay. Avenger of the murderer?
The woman.
The woman,
Because
yes.
it said they're pressuring the woman to give up the son, right?
Oh.
So she doesn't have a husband. One son murdered the other son, and then the whole village. Did it say village?
And this clan, the
whole clan is pressuring
clan.
her to find the other son so that the other son could be put to death. Right. All right. Let's keep going. Let's go to Engineer James. Could you read this page, please?
Okay. Then the woman said, please let your servant speak a word to my lord the king. He said, speak. And the woman said, why then have you planned such a thing against the people of God? For in giving this decision, the king convicts himself inasmuch as the king does not bring his banished one home again.
Uh-oh, what's going on here?
That's Arsamon come home.
Yeah, it's an analogy, right? It's an analogy. Okay, Dan, could you read this page?
Sure. We must all die. We are like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. But God will not take away life, and he devises means so that the banished one will not remain an outcast. Now I have come to say this to my lord the king, because the people have made me afraid, and your servant thought, I will speak to the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his servant.
All right, so verse 14 was so poetic, wasn't it? We all must die. We're like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. But God will not take away life, and he devises means so that the banished one will not remain an outcast. I love verse 14. I don't know who this lady is. She's from Tekoa. Anyway, Ivy, could you read this page?
Okay. For the king will hear and deliver his servant from the hand of the man who would destroy me and my son together from the heritage of God. And your servant thought, the word of my lord, the king will set me at rest. For my lord, the king is like the angel of God to discern good and evil. The Lord your God be with you.
What a compliment in verse 17. The word of my Lord the king will set me at rest, for my Lord the king is like an angel of God, like an angel to discern good and evil. David is not like Saul at all. Anyway, let's keep going. There's not really a lot to explain in this chapter. Samuel, could you read this page?
Okay, sure thing. Then the king answered the woman, do not hide from anything I ask you. And the woman said, let my lord the king speak. The king said, is the hand of Joab with you in all this? The woman answered and said, as surely as you live, my lord the king, one cannot turn the right hand or to the left on anything that my lord the king has said.
Yeah, and this is cannot turn to the right hand or the left hand from anything. This is kind of a Hebrew expression of ignorance. So like when Jesus said, when you're giving, don't let the left hand do what your right hand know what your right hand is doing. And so David knows what. David has figured out what.
Joab is behind this.
Joab is behind it. He's always behind everything. All right. Hi, Claire.
She can't read.
Oh, that's fine. James Chappell, could you read this page, please?
Sure. It was your servant Joab who commanded me. It was he who put all these words in the mouth of your servant. In order to change the course of things, your servant Joab did this. But my Lord has wisdom, like the wisdom of the angel of God, to know all things that are on the earth.
I don't know if this is flattery or if this is just compliments, but I think the words are true, whether or not she means it as flattery or not. So somebody explain the analogy. The woman has two sons, no husband, two sons. Okay, who are the two sons? Who? The son that was murdered is who?
Amnon.
Amnon. Who?
And
Absalom. And who's the old woman?
Absalom.
Who's the old woman? Maybe, I don't know.
David.
Do you think Joab?
David, could be David.
I don't know. Maybe the analogy only works for the two sons. But part of the analogy was the clan all is pressuring her to tell where the other son is. And I thought maybe Joab is like the old woman and everyone's pressuring Joab to give up Absalom. Do you think so? Anyway, whether that's the case or
It's
not,
possible. I think
Joab does know where Absalom is.
but he can't do anything without the king's permission.
Right, you can't do anything without the king's permission. All right, Joab is, whenever there's something going on, Joab is all like something cloak and dagger. Joab is always somehow involved. Remember, I like that yawn, James. It's a good yawn. Whenever there's something mischievous going on, Joab seems to be in the middle of it somehow. And yes, Joab knows where Absalom is, and doesn't tell David. Anyway, move on.
I think the widow is describing David's heart, like it's being a widow at that time is just very helpless, and it's so sad. It's kind of almost like pathetic, like it's just desolate. I think it describes a father's heart that like King David's like, oh, I lost my son, and then I can't see another son. It's like I've lost two sons.
Right. It's a tragedy, right?
Yeah.
If
The Bible
one
is-
child murders another son, it's a tragedy.
Yeah, it's like that status of a widow really describes, David's heart. Like it's so helpless, so sad. Like I don't
Broken.
I have no one to turn to. I think it's like a spiritual state. But I think in the New Testament, like there are a lot of like examples or stories about like us being like a widow, because we are so spiritually helpless when we don't know God, when we don't turn back to Him.
Right. And what a horrible tragedy for your husband to die, and then one son murders another son, and then the other son is put to death. What a horrible tragedy.
Yeah.
Of course, the analogy is of David's sons, right? Okay, let's moving on. How about Joanna? Could you read this page, please?
Then the king said to Joab, "Behold, now I grant this. Go, bring back the young man Absalom." And Joab fell on his face to the ground and paid homage and blessed the king. And Joab said, "Today your servant knows that I have found favor in your sight, my lord the king, in that the king has granted the request of his servant."
Okay. And Sophia, could you read this page?
Yeah. So Joab rose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. And the king said, "Let him dwell apart in his own house. He's not to come into my presence." So Absalom lived apart in his own house, and did not come into the king's presence.
So
That's weird.
Is there a full forgiveness between David and Absalom?
No.
No. Okay, he can live, but I don't want to see him, right? Okay. How about Engineer James? Could you read this page?
Okay. Now in all Israel, there was no one so such to be praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. And when he cut the hair of his head, for at the end of every year he used to cut it, when it was heavy on him, he cut it.
All right, ladies, stop thinking so much. So Absalom, he's handsome like David was, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more.
All right, let's keep going. How about next is Dan?
He weighed the hair of his head 200 shekels by the king's weight. There were born to Absalom 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a beautiful woman.
Okay, what did Absalom name his daughter?
Probably after his sister,
Right.
Tamar.
And we all know that women are not often mentioned in the Bible. And so the fact that this is mentioned, the writer of 2 Samuel is really trying to make a statement here. Absalom is still not so happy about it. And really the division between David and Absalom really might, or the origin of that might be, why didn't you have more judgment against Tamar? That might be the origin.
Amnon.
What?
Against Amnon.
Well, Amnon was killed. Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I had a moment. Yes. Why didn't you have more judgment against Amnon? When he raped Tamar, and this is probably the source of this issue. Okay. Verse 28. How about James Chung? Could you read this page?
Okay. So Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem without coming into the king's presence. Then Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but Joab would not come to him. And he sent a second time, but Joab would not come. Then he said to his servant, see, Joab's field is next to mine. He has a ballet there. Go and set it on fire. So Absalom's servants set the field on fire.
All right, so after 2 years of awkward separation from David, Absalom, what does Absalom want to do?
See his dad.
He wants to see dad.
Yeah.
And so he wants Joab to send him to the king. Joab thinks it's a bad idea. Like he might put you to death, Absalom. So how does Absalom get Joab's attention?
Set a fire on his field.
That's his fields on fire. I'm serious. I want to meet dad. I'm going to burn your field down, right? Anyway, that's one way to get someone's attention. Burn their field down. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah.
Next is Ivy. Could you read this page?
Okay. Then Joab arose and went to Absalom at his house and said to him, why have your servant set my field on fire? Absalom answered Joab, behold, I send word to you, come here, that I may send you to the king to ask, why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me to be there still.
Right, and we're going to keep going. How about James Chappell? Could you read this page?
Yeah, sure. Now, therefore, let me go into the presence of the king, and if there is guilt in me, let him put me to death. Then Joab went to the king and told him, and he summoned Absalom. So he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom.
Right. So we have a little bit of respect for Absalom here. He's willing to die in order to what?
See his father.
Be united to his father. That's right. And here, if there is guilt in me, it seems like Absalom is not really that sure if he's guilty of anything. I don't know. Like Absalom kind of says, well, my sister was murdered, and therefore, if there is guilt in me, right? I don't think Absalom, I feel like Absalom feels like he's innocent.
Yeah, he felt that way.
Thinks
He
that
felt very,
Amnon should be executed by the
yeah,
king.
He's feel like I did what you should have done, right?
right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a pretty good, like, this is a pretty, we learned in the last time we met that God promised to curse David's family, to create that the sword would never leave his family. And this is a perfect situation of division where you've got, you could side on both sides. You could side with David, or you could see how someone would side with Absalom, right? We don't know how much Absalom is really doing this out of righteousness or how much of it out of ambition, right? Because Absalom also wants to be king. So we don't really know. Anyway, so at least what a horrible 2 chapters, horrible as far as sinfulness goes, but we got a nice ending, don't we?
Yeah.
What happens at the end? What happens at the end?
They kissed.
Well, I don't know if they kiss.
It sounds so.
Not that kind of. Anyway,
The king kissed Absalom.
so David chooses to ignore the blood guilt, and then you can see the affection coming on David. David kissed Absalom. So not only is he not going to kill Absalom, but also they can be maybe father and son again. This isn't going to last very long, but as of right now, they have a relationship, and just like David forgives Saul, David's going to forgive Absalom, but Absalom this is going to be very short-lived. Next time we come here, it will be 5 chapters of Absalom trying to overthrow David, right?
Mm.